The influencer industry as we know it today was mostly created by Mormon women. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Sometimes on this channel, I really want to teach courses almost and give just a ton of info, a ton of trainings, and sometimes I just want to talk, and today's one of the times where I just want to talk. I've had these thoughts in my head forever and no logical platform to share them on. So I'm just gonna share them just because I have things to say and you're gonna hear them. And I specifically wanted to talk about why everything is Mormon now. And by that I mean why are Mormons taking over reality TV, and why are there so many more conversations about Mormonism? They're in multiple documentaries right now. There's the dirty soda trend is sweeping the nation. I went to Taco Bell yesterday and they had a dirty soda option that is directly inspired from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and the soda shop drinks that they popularized on national TV that have always been a big thing in Utah, Arizona, and Mormon culture. And they have just kind of spread. And I want to talk about this because I think I have a really unique perspective. Sunday, no chewing microphones. If anybody wants the Sunday update, she's doing so much better. She's almost completely healed, I think, from what I can tell. And she also, it turns out, has way more energy than I ever realized she does. She has the energy of a puppy. She chases her ball around maybe 2 hours a day. So I'm really happy she's feeling better. But she's also doing things like trying to chew the microphone cords. And she's taken a bunch of these green fabrics off my bed and just chews them up. But I digress. I have a unique perspective on these things because I was raised LDS, and also I've been a blogger and an online business owner for a long time, which is closely tied to what is going on, and I will get into why all those things are related. And I want to start with a big disclaimer. I'm only talking about my experience. I was raised in a military LDS family. I have experience in LDS churches all around the world. But anytime any ex-Mormon starts sharing about their experience, you'll get flooded with comments of people saying, that's not what they teach in the church. That wasn't my experience. Because it's literally a commandment within the church. The highest authorities command you to defend the faith. So we're probably going to get comments like that. It's okay. It's just people defending their faith, but I'm speaking about my experience. That's the only thing I have authority on to speak about. Okay, so there's two things you have to understand about being a young woman in the church, or as I experienced it, being a young woman in the church. One of them is that creativity is really encouraged, especially in young women in the church. Lots of church activities for women, young women, and girls center around crafting and creativity. It's just a huge part of the culture, and obviously a part of it that I really thrived in. And the second thing you have to understand is that record keeping is a really huge part of both the culture and the doctrine, the hard teachings of the church. Things like journaling, scrapbooking, family history, these are huge hobbies. I mean, they go further than hobbies because they're almost divine callings in many cases. And though lots of men in the church are interested in things like journaling and family history, these are predominantly female activities. Okay, third thing. I lied. There's actually 3 things you need to understand. Third thing is that traditional careers are strongly discouraged amongst women. Motherhood is called the highest and holiest calling, and you're not supposed to do anything that could interfere with your ability to be a full-time mom. So what happens is you have all these super creative women in their homes raising children with the imperative to document their family and to share light and love with the world. So naturally, when the blogging technology arrives, some of the biggest groups of early adopters are Mormon women, blogging about their lives, about their families, and about their lifestyles. And despite what we're seeing on these reality TV shows, most Mormons aren't uber wealthy. There's a range, like in any culture. And the conversation about wealth and Mormonism could be a whole other video, because it's almost like subcultures where some believe that wealth is almost like a display of God's favor for you because you've been so righteous that you've received all these blessings in return for that. And then there are other not sects because they're not really separated, but different subcultures of Mormonism, like the one I was raised in, where you actually kind of believe that being poor and the humility that comes with it is closer to godliness than having all the earthly comforts. Like I said, that could be another video. But these women, even if they're discouraged in their religion from pursuing careers, doesn't mean they don't have some kind of natural ambition, right? So the monetization of blogging also kind of creates this loophole, I almost want to say, where you can have a career and contribute to your household while being a full-time mom and actually using your parenthood and using your experiences and your documentation that you're already kind of supposed to be doing to fuel that career. And there's also kind of a trickle down that's happening at this time where blogging also becomes a pretty popular creative form for younger women in the church, even those who don't have children yet, including myself when I was a teenager. Blogging was a really popular creative outlet among young Mormon girls. And I'm talking about the kind of blogging that predates Instagram. We'll get to the Instagram of it all too. When I was in high school, besides myself, I knew about 4 other people who were also blogging. They all happened to be girls, and 3 of them were other Mormons. It's just kind of a cultural phenomenon. Okay, so if you didn't already know, before Instagram existed, influencers existed. We just didn't call them that. We called them bloggers. They had brand deals. They had sponsored posts. They got paid for traffic to their website. They got paid to feature products. It was not like the marketing behemoth that it is now, but there were people, and a lot of them were Mormon women, were getting paid for content creation. And like I said, you can do this without violating or even like lightly bending any of the commandments. You can blog while your kids are sleeping. You can spread messages of domestic and familial happiness, documentary work, and it's just a creative part of running a modern household. It's like the scrapbooking that our moms and grandmas would do. And when Instagram became an app, it sort of became a natural extension of these blogs. It wasn't initially, as far as I could tell, a place where people were making money, but it was a place where people would kind of advertise their blogs. And as a young Mormon woman, this was all very exciting for me. I think I was 16 or 17 when the Instagram app came out, and I was in high school and we all kind of started joining it. And I was excited because I was the kind of young woman who, even at the age of 16 and 17, was wanting to be a mother, but also knowing that I had creative ambitions, I had career ambitions, and just not sure how I was going to be able to approach those things and kind of like make them work together in a way that was functional and that felt good. So I got pretty hyped pretty fast about Instagram and about blogging because I could suddenly see the path. So I was locked in. It became almost like a hyperfixation. I was really interested in following brands on Instagram. I was really interested in seeing how different people were using social media to build creative businesses, especially not just people, but women who also had children. That was really fascinating to me, the way they just kind of went in and created an industry for themselves. I'm still in awe of this. The influencer industry as we know it today was mostly created by Mormon women because they needed a creative career outlet. So they just used the tools that were there and made one. So a couple years after the advent of Instagram, I started dating this guy who was involved in a startup that was essentially what we would now call an influencer management company. They were brokering some of the first brand deals. They were actually mostly working with people on Vine, rest in peace. And he and I would connect a lot over our shared interest in this industry. And at work events, we would go to Christmas parties and whatever. And the wives of a lot of the men who worked at this company were already famous bloggers or were like budding influencers. And while it was the husbands predominantly who were running this company, it was the women who were, behind the scenes really leading the charge and giving these men an inside look at the industry so that they could, then turn it into something. They could become a totally unnecessary middleman for it, I guess. But they were very like innovative in the way that they would pitch to companies this like brand new form of marketing, and that startup actually got acquired by Disney. And at this time, my blog had transformed into like a vintage fashion and travel blog, and I would occasionally sell vintage clothing on Instagram. It wasn't until several years later that I began my first like real online business, and when I did, most of my network at that time was predominantly made up of Mormons or ex-Mormons or people who had some kind of connection to Utah, because at this point, and this was 2018, those were the people who had been in it the longest or had been around it. If you started a business during that time, you probably had a disproportionate number of Mormon people in your network, whether that was people who were like designing brands, helping with marketing, influencing for your products. They were just the early adopters. They were the pioneers, if you will. So it makes sense that a lot of the earliest, biggest influencers were Mormon women, because they already had these blogs where they had curated aesthetics, curated niches, curated audiences, and they just brought those to Instagram, whereas other people were kind of starting from ground zero on Instagram. So even now, some of the biggest influencers, at least the influencers who have been in the game the longest, there are many Mormon and ex-Mormon women. And what I didn't really see coming is that our screens have become such an enormous part of our lives that the people on those screens are the new celebrities. So it was inevitable that these influencers were eventually going to become more culturally relevant. Now they're on Dancing with the Stars and Broadway and opening bigger businesses, because those are kind of the natural progressions of the influencer career. Once you've been in it long enough, you kind of take it to a product line, or you take it to TV and like a more entertainer route. And I think there are a lot more other factors that contribute to what is going on. Like there's been a huge increase in criticism against organized religion in general. There's been like a wave of interest in things like high demand religion and cults, and all those things just kind of heat up the spotlight on Mormon women. And it's been really interesting as an ex-Mormon person to be experiencing it, because when you grow up in this religion, it feels like very niche, and sometimes people don't even know what you are when they ask if you're religious and you say you're Mormon. Like lots of people didn't even used to know what that mean, to the point where now Mormonism is mentioned in passing close to every day. And if I ever mention, which I don't a lot because I don't always love to center it in conversation, but if I ever happen to mention that I was raised Mormon, people have a lot of new questions and preconceived notions and just a curiosity around it that they didn't have 5-10 years ago. I actually don't think I've talked so much about being Mormon since I was an actual Mormon missionary. So anyway, nobody asked. I just feel like having been in those two subcultures of both the like influencer online business world and being a young Mormon woman and kind of having that experience with the startup guy, I feel like I had just a unique perspective and could maybe offer some explanation for people who are so confused about what's going on and why we're talking about Mormons all the time. Those are my 2 cents, that it just was inevitable once our screens got so huge, once the people in our screens became celebrities, that Mormons were going to be sort of near the top of that pyramid. Anyway, I'd love to hear everybody's 2 cents. If you have anything to add in the comments, keep it kind, keep it respectful. There's a way to have this conversation that is both adult and truthful and respectful as well. And yeah, once again, I'm just so happy to be back here on YouTube with you, and I will see you for my next video.